All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ASP.NET Core Community Stand-Up, where we talk about the latest updates to .NET web development. I'm Daniel Roth. I'm the Principal Product Manager for ASP.NET Core and Blazor on the .NET team. And today I'm joined by a whole bunch of special guests. We have Javier here. Javier is our Principal Architect for ASP.NET Core and Blazor. Welcome, Javier.
Hello, everyone.
Awesome. We have Mike here. Mike's our Principal Product Manager for ASP.NET Core and Minimal APIs and SignalR. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks, Dan.
And a couple of new guests. First of all, we got Wendy. Wendy is Senior Product Manager on the .NET tooling team. Hi, Wendy. How you doing?
Hello. Great. How are you?
Doing awesome. Glad to have you here. And then last but not least, we have Abhitej. Abhitej is a Principal Software Engineering Manager on the .NET tooling team. Hi, Abhitej.
Hey folks, how you all doing?
Awesome, doing great. Okay, so the topic for today is we're gonna talk about how you can improve your AI development experience using .NET Skills, the .NET Skills repo, a whole marketplace full of plugins and skills and tools and things. And to help us navigate all of this and understand what all this means, Wendy's gonna talk to us a little bit about like how do you elevate your AI .NET development experience. Let me go ahead and I'll bring up your screen. Just a second. There you go. Okay, there we go. Wendy, walk us through this. Like I know people are, they're diving into using Copilot and coding agents to get their work done. What are they missing out on? Maybe how can they make that experience even better?
Awesome. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that we provide, that the tooling provides, that makes it easier for you to provide the models with the context that it needs to be more successful. To start off, I'm going to go through a basic context flow. And I want to start off by saying when you're dealing with AI models, we don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm going to tell you what we do know and how we are seeing that it helps, and what ways you can provide different pieces of information and where you can get that information. So first off, when we're sending information to the LLM, a basic prompt gets sent. And this prompt is not just what you typed in, but it's a whole bunch of things that I have listed here. First, it says, you are and then there's like you're a senior software developer or something like that along those lines. Then there's a set of code rules that it provides. Make sure you make precise searchable changes, blah, 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 all the different guidelines that we give with regard to coding that it does. And then it goes even further into guidelines, not the specific rules, but these guidelines of you should use blah to do these types of things. So different types of things that it provides. Then it provides a list of limitations. Don't share sensitive data. These are all your responsible AI type of limitations that we remind the model that it needs to follow. After that, that's when we start to get into the things that you provide. First, there's these tool descriptions. And so the built-in tools that the agent harness that you're using provides. And so it uses the definitions of those tools to let it know that you have these available. And then if you've added any MCP servers to your settings, all of the tool definitions that are turned on are included there as well. And then there are skills descriptions. So each skill that you add into your system, all of the descriptions are provided there. And then your custom instructions. And I'm going to dive into what all these are in a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to give you the kind of the flow first, and then we'll get into details to what each of these are. So then after the tools, then your custom instructions apply. Then any additional instructions that the agent harness provides. And so if you've selected to be in plan mode or in autopilot, there's a special set of instructions that it needs in order to abide by those rules. Then any custom agent descriptions that you've installed will be displayed there. And then finally, there's a set of final instructions that the system provides. The job is not finished until blah, blah, blah. Then your prompt, the thing that you typed into the chat window, then that's applied at the very, very end. And this is the basic flow of things. So it goes prompt to the LLM, and then the LLM does a continuous loop of, okay, what skills, agents, tools do I need to do to accomplish this? And back to the LLM, okay, here's your response. And then am I finished? No, until it has reached the conclusion and it provides back a response for you. And this is the basic flow of how the agent harness and the LLMs work together.
It's pretty interesting how much additional stuff is happening behind the scenes besides just typing in your prompts. Like there's quite a bit of context that's being fed into the agent to help it do things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. So let's dive into some of these different things. So the first thing here I want to talk about is custom instructions. Most of you who have been using AI for a while understand there's an instructions file that you can add that kind of gives it your rules for how you want coding to be done, how you want your tasks. These are your high level kind of instructions to give the model for everything. So as you saw in the previous one, this is included. These instructions are included with every prompt that you send. And so you want to keep this simple. We have found through all of our evaluations that complexity in these instructions files degrades the performance. So you want to keep this as simple as you possibly can. The CLI, Copilot CLI provides a great tool with /init, which will go through and peruse your repo and create a very simple instructions file based on what it sees in the repo that you have run the init on, which is a great start. Then you can go in and add any customizations and things that you want to do after that.
So this is every single prompt, like every single time I type something, hit enter, this thing is inserted before that. Is that what?
Yes.
Yep.
And I know someone, I think Thindel was talking about their Copilot instructions file. Is that the actual artifact that's used to provide these? Okay. Thindel, you might want to trim that down, bud.
You want to keep it simple. And I do want to say that there are two possible locations for instructions files. And so both of them would get applied. There's your user instructions files. It's in your user profile.copilot folder. And then in your repo, there's a set of instructions. And so those will get placed on top of each other. And so if you have conflicting information in your user profile and your instructions, we don't know what the LLM does with that information and how it resolves. So you want to make sure that they align as much as possible to, again, stop the confusion and the degradation of the performance of the results that you're getting.
Okay, but every single prompt that's got to be sent. So you want to keep that fairly short, and it's basically like, hey, don't forget this type of instruction.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And for what we've seen, where people are most successful with repo level instructions files is this is how you build my project if it's not the normal, and this is how you test my project if it's not the normal, right? Giving it that specific information it needs to be successful with everything that it's doing for you.
Gotcha.
The next thing I want to talk about are custom agents. Now, custom agents are kind of described as these role-specific personas that the agent can take on. A security reviewer, a planner, a solution architect. These can be run in two different ways. One, you can run them by selecting or calling the agent itself and saying, agent, run this prompt. I don't recommend doing that. Each of the agent harnesses, VS Code, the CLI, Visual Studio has spent a lot of time working and getting their agent harnesses to a great place for most of the types of things that you're trying to do. Where the real benefits of custom agents comes in is when the agent harness says, ooh, I'm going to divide this off into a set of tasks. And I see that you've got a C# developer here, or an ASP.NET Core developer here, or a front-end developer here as a sub agent. I'm going to pull that in to do that front-end development task. It goes into its own context window. It sends just the specific task that it wants that front-end developer agent to do, and it runs it, and then it sends back the results to the main agent harness. So these sub agents can be really powerful in that aspect. And so if you have specific instructions, when I'm doing front end development, I want you to follow these set of rules. That's what you would define in your custom agents. And again, I would use them in that sub agent context more than just calling it flat out.
And what kinds of things get associated with a sub agent? Like I assume it has its own like prompt, like sort of like initial set of context about like you are a front end Blazor developer or you are a SignalR back end developer type of thing. Does it also get like its own specific set of tools and skills, like things that it knows how to like specifically do that are specific to that agent? Is that how to think about it?
Exactly. In subagents, you can define these are the set of tools that I want the subagent to be able to do. These are the skills that it has available to it. These are, the rules that it should follow. It can be just a straight MD file, or it can be a link to other MD files that provide that added context, those skills, those tools that it needs to be successful.
Okay. Yeah, someone was asking, like, is this kind of like a more generic skill? And we haven't talked really about skills yet, but it doesn't sound like it's quite the same thing. Like, it sounds like, I'm going to set up usually with a custom agent, you're spinning off like a separate context window, right? Like it's going to have its own context window.
Yes.
And in that context window, you decide, you get to decide what skills and tools are relevant for that.
Yep.
The kind of work that subagent is going to do. Whereas a skill is like a specific, capability that you're trying to advertise to your current context window so that it knows how to handle things. So like, I think of custom agents almost like a really convenient packaging of a bunch of skills and tools and some context, like a prompt that you want to be able to feed all at once into a new context window as like a package.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of feels weird to talk about a subagent given it has very like, humanistic, human-like, calling it a packaging, but
yes.
like Javier, you're basically a package of a software architect. But you know what I mean? Like a way to sort of associate those things all together into a convenient unit for setting up a context window. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what you'll see in a lot of these custom agents that you see out in the marketplaces. They are defining. They've taken these experts and they've said, okay, write out the specific rules that you would want that you follow, so that the agent can then follow those rules and be just like you, right? And so that is exactly that. You're providing the knowledge base of a persona, right? In those instances.
Cool.
It's also interesting that when you're doing one of these, you can also think of the things that you wouldn't do as a human, but that you would do as a machine, and tell it like, go and write a console log line on every line of the program to figure out where something is breaking.
Yeah. They are not limited by our capabilities, the size of our context windows and such. Yeah,
absolutely.
Or our tolerance for tedium.
So a lot of the agent harnesses have provided some really great built-in agents that you don't have to worry about writing on your own. So there's a planner agent that will implement a plan for you. There's the rubber duck agent that will critique your current work. There's a diagnose agent, which will analyze your session logs. Fleet is amazing because that really kind of launches it into that parallel sub-agent execution. There's a research agent that will help do deep research, and a review agent that does code reviews, which are pretty helpful. So you don't have to write these on your own. These are built into the agent harness. Now, skills, in contrast, are more like playbooks. They are kind of a checked-in job guidance. I have a specific task that I wanted to do, and here are the types of things that I want you to follow. This is really great for things that you do on a repeated basis that you want Copilot to be able to do for you in the way that you want it. And you can provide skills, can be straight text, but they're most powerful when you provide them with a set of tools to go along with it. So the first time you create a skill, you may just have here are the guidelines, and you see when it runs, it spins off and creates a Python job that does a set of the things that you want to do. Now, you don't want Copilot to create that Python script every single time. And so then you can take that Python script, package it back up into the skill, reuse it. So then you're using less tokens the next time you run it, and you can keep evolving. And so with skills, you want these to be that specialized, reusable types of things that you do all the time. And so these will only load when they're needed. As you saw in the original description there, just the description is loaded. The agent says, ooh, that looks important to what you just asked me, and it pulls in. Only in that case where it says, hey, I think I need to use that skill, does it then pull in and read the entire skill.
Yeah. And it's a standard, right? Like this is basically like what to define a skill is kind of specced out so that any coding agent, like whether you're using Copilot or if you like Claude or if you want to use Codex or whatever, these various harnesses all kind of have decided to agree on a common pattern for what a skill looks like. So your skills can be reused if you were using a different harness.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I would say one more thing, because we mentioned the Python script. File-based apps in .NET are also a great thing to put on skills.
Yes.
I love telling it, just write a file-based app. I can bring in packages. It's beautiful.
Yes, good call there. And so both agents and skills, you can create your own by hand. You can ask Copilot to create them for you, or there are several marketplaces, including .NET Skills, that have lots of these for you to acquire within your system. And my colleagues are going to describe how to do that in a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit Model Context Protocol, the MCP servers. These are a set of tools that can be used by the agents when your activity that you need to do needs to make a call to an external system. So whether that's a data source or another tool set, this protocol provides you a way to get access to that information. So if you want to connect to a database from Copilot, if you want to connect to Slack or anything else, there's all available using MCP servers. And in that case, really, that is the only instance where you need an MCP server. Everything else can be done with skills.
And so MCP servers, I think, are also a little heavier, right? Like they advertise a bunch of tools, and tools in this case means like something very specific to MCP. It's like a schema describing, like, I have this piece of functionality, here's all its parameters, and here's the description. And those, when you configure an MCP server, all of those tools automatically get advertised to the agent, right? And they always do, correct?
Yes.
Whereas
So when you provide an MCP server definition to Copilot, it is then going to pull in all the tools available in that MCP server, and the description for each one of those gets loaded in that initial context.
And then, but the skills are a little different, in that you just get like a brief description, like you have a skill that knows how to do this, and then the agent decides, oh, let me try to use that skill, and it pulls in the rest of the information about it, sort of as it decides that skill is appropriate, or if you explicitly instructed the agent to use that skill. So that kind of suggests to me that you should kind of be judicious in how many MCPs you configure, right? Because they can be a little bit heavier on the context window.
Usually, well, they're both just in the initial prompt, just pulling in descriptions. So it depends on how big the descriptions are.
Oh, okay.
And so really you want to be judicious with both of them, because you don't want to overload it with a bunch of conflicting tools and skills, right? If you have an MCP server that does one thing and a skill that does the exact same thing, we have no idea what the LLM is going to choose when it comes down to it, right? It could get confused. It may not use either one, because it's going to say, hey, I see two, I don't know which one to use, so I'm just going to go on my own. They're that unpredictable. So you do want to be very careful and make sure that the skills and MCP servers that you're including are the ones that you really want and need to use.
Gotcha.
And so if you're looking to develop something, most of the time, a skill is all you need. You don't usually need to spend the time creating an MCP server. There are instances like stateful environments and auth-gated services where MCP server is required, but in everything else should be a skill. So speaking of skills, we have created this .NET Skills repo, which provides a whole lot. I think we're up to like 95 different skills, and these are the plugins that they are divided into. So there's some common skills, there's some data access type skills, some diagnostic skills, things specific to MS Build and NuGet and Upgrade, and if you're doing MAUI development, if you're doing AI development, if you want to do project scaffolding, testing, great skills around testing, and then some .NET 11 if you're getting prepared for the next release. And then the ones we're going to be showing you today, the ASP.core and Blazor. There's one last thing I want to talk about before I hand it over to Abhitej, just to go into all of what we've done with .NET Skills, is LSP servers. And so it's another tool, but in a very different way. So we have provided the Roslyn language server for you to be able to use with the CLI. If you're in Visual Studio or VS Code using Copilot, those harnesses have built-in tools, their own built-in tools that use the language server in order to do code searches. And so you will find, and if you're using Visual Studio VS Code versus the CLI without an LSP, your code searches may be better. It may be more complete and able to find the code that it's looking for and complete the tasks in a better way. In order to solve that problem, the CLI can use the Roslyn LSP in order to do those same things. And so it will then make an LSP call to do the code searches. And we have this built right into our .NET skill, and so you can add the plugin marketplace and then pull in that plugin from the .NET Agent Skills plugin marketplace, and it will install that LSP for you. And the next time you run the CLI, it will start being much more successful in finding the code that it's looking for.
Yeah, we showed a little bit of this, I think it was last week when we had the Razor tooling folks here, where we showed a little bit of the C# LSP and how it now also understands Razor files as well. Yeah, so it's instead of doing like grep and searching through the raw text of the code, the LSP has like a semantic understanding of the code base. Cool. Yeah, so that's great. And I do think it's worth just talking briefly about naming, like so there's a repo. That's the .NET Skills repo, where we are making all these new plugins available. And so I don't know, what's a plugin? Like a plugin is sort of the piece of extensibility for like GitHub Copilot. Like if you want to acquire a bunch of skills, tools, MCP servers, LSP, like all the things that you can do to augment your AI development experience, you can acquire those in a unit as a plugin. Is that right?
It's basically a unit of these artifacts, skills, agents, LSPs, all the tools, all packaged together in a plugin.
So, and even though it's our repo, which is also our marketplace, which is another term here. I know when I was first learning about this, I was like swimming. I felt like a new terminology. So we have a repo, which acts as a marketplace for multiple plugins, I think is all the terms.
Yes.
So our marketplace for .NET is the .NET Skills, is in the .NET Skills repo. So if you're trying to figure out what marketplace to add, that's the one we would point you to. And then it includes a bunch of plugins, and those plugins actually include more than just skills. They can include, in fact, I think some of them actually include MCP servers and the LSP server and so forth. Yeah. So don't think this is only getting you skills. This is getting you all the things that you might want in this one marketplace. All right, cool. Yeah. So Abhitej, do you want to? Your team's been working on .NET Skills and providing all these awesome plugins. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like how you guys have been working on that, and also like how do you make sure that these things actually improve the development experience?
Absolutely. Well, in .NET Skills, we deeply care about the skills that we provide, the quality of the skills that we provide. We want to make sure that the skills provide a lift over the base models in general. And there's two axes that we care about when we talk about quality. One is, is it really providing that lift? And the second is it actually?
You didn't have your screen quite up yet. There we go. I think people can see it now. There we go.
Yeah. So the one thing is the quality aspect, and then the second is the token aspect. So you can see we have all of the plugins that Wendy was talking about here, and we track both quality and the token consumption for these skills over time. So you want to make sure that for each of these skills, they are giving you better responses for the scenarios that .NET experts have crafted. So each skill, when someone provides a skill, they also add an eval file tied to that skill that essentially measures whether the skill is doing the right thing, whether the skill is actually providing the right responses, giving the right outputs for the scenario dictated. So And there's a lot of numbers here, so I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm just going to talk about maybe one of these graphs. So each of these measures each individual skill, which is about 95 right now, and they're growing by the week. So as you can see here, we have 3 axes. We measure what the vanilla model is providing as a response for the scenario, and we also measure when you apply the skill, is it actually helping? And when you apply the plugin overall, as Stan was talking about, a plugin as a group of all these skills, is that still helping? And in most cases, we do a decent job keeping track that these are helping or not. In most cases, you see that there's a lift between what the vanilla model provides and what the skill itself and the plugin itself adds to the response. So this is the quality aspect. We also have the token aspect. So we want to make sure that these skills are not costing you a lot for the quality that they provide. So we measure that as well over time. I want to make sure that we don't really consume a lot of tokens, and we base that off of when someone installs a specific skill versus when someone installs the entire plugin as such. And we do this across the skills. And for anyone who's adding a new skill, all of the .NET experts that are out there adding skills, we also make sure that we have some kind of metric, the same metrics essentially showcased as part of the PR itself. If I can get to the right comment here, there you go. And each of these updates verifies if, hey, I'm basically updating the migration skill. Has the quality improved? It looks like it has. Does it really, according to all of the infra metrics that we calculate, are we good with actually merging this change in across various axes? One interesting piece is overfitting. Now, overfitting is when an eval potentially tries to, or the model, groks information that it shouldn't really, in a way. So we measure that in the sense of like, hey, is this honestly trying to get to the answer, or is it cheating a little bit? Is the
Wait, AI models cheat? Wait, what is this?
Is the eval crafted correctly? Is the model following the scenario that the user prescribes, or is it getting smart and like looking for context on hey, this is the eval that I should probably cheat on? So we measure that as well. And someone talked about security earlier. We have a bunch of static linters to make sure that each and every skill that we put in doesn't go and point to some random link out there. For instance, we have static linters on the MCP servers that people consume and skills, the scripts that people have in each of these scripts. So you want to make sure as people are adding more skills to the repo and as we are updating skills, that everyone can trust the skills that we put in to the repo and trust the skills that they're being consumed here. So that's one of the things that we care about quite a bit as well. And we have the skill validator infra, which is what we have at the moment, to make sure that as we make updates, things are looking good. And stay tuned. There's an update to the infra that we are planning to put out as well. And that comes with additional goodness and a lot more performance. So that's something that we're really excited about as well.
So we test each skill against like the you were showing those graphs before, like we were test against the baseline performance of the model without any help. And then we try it with like the skill in play and see does the performance against specific tasks improve. And then it looks like we also test if we add like the sort of the aggregate of the plugin, all the skills of the plugin, what does that actually impact? So we measure that it's actually improving the experience. And then you also talked about we measure token usage to make sure that it's not like, in order to give you that experience, that we're not like charging you 10 times more money in order to get the same amount of to get that improved development experience. I mean, in some cases, I might even think it might make things cheaper. Like sometimes you add a tool that does the job of like, you know, consuming a whole bunch of tokens, and that can actually like reduce your token usage. You might save some money.
Yep. Sometimes the model ends up creating duplicates of tools that already exist. So pointing it to the set of trusted tools definitely helps reduce the token cost. Exactly.
And then the overfitting, that's like making sure that the model doesn't like the evaluation test isn't just like optimizing for that specific test, that it should generalize to a bunch of similar tasks, not just the one task that it's being tested on. And that's not taking some shortcut in order to that happens to only work for that one task, but doesn't work for anything else.
That's right.
Cool. Yeah. So these things they're going through quite a bit of a rigor then to make sure that they're high quality. How do you get them? Like, how do you get set up with these things?
Yeah, that's super easy. It's just 1 and 2. It's all in the repo over here, but I can, and it works for Copilot CLI. It works for any client that's out there, Cloud Code, VS Code as well. And all you need to do is add the .NET Skills Marketplace and then install the plugin that you care about. So if you want the .NET DAG plugin, you would just say plugin install .NET DAG. .NET Agent Skills, which is the marketplace ID for the .NET Skills repo.
So like diagnostics and stuff like that, like metrics and traces. Is that what that one's for?
Right, exactly. So this would help you optimize your apps, and there's a bunch of like log collection and stuff like that this plugin has. And yeah, I have a demo, but I think I'll save it for another time. But yeah, I just wanted to just add the marketplace.
You want to show it? You can. Like, I don't know. It's up to you.
No, it's all right. I think okay. I can probably handle on a little longer, but that's okay. Yeah.
So use the slash plugin command. So use the slash plugin command. If you're on the CLI, which is what you're using here, like this is the GitHub Copilot CLI, use slash plugin to install plugins. You'll need to add our marketplace first, which basically is just like point to our GitHub repo, and then you can install the various plugins from there. There's like the base .NET one. There's one for aspnetcore. One for. I mean, I'll show that next. If you're in VS Code or if you're in Visual Studio, like, is there a different experience for those? Like, how do you or like how? Right. Yeah, again, there's different instructions here. You go into the settings to add them.
Yep. It's just this. So once you add the marketplace, it's set up for good, and you can then install the plugins that you care about once it's configured. It's the same for VS. I think VS is going through a slightly different experience. We'll update the instructions for that. But yeah.
Are these plugins supported in full Visual Studio, like the Windows IDE? Do they have a way to install the plugins from .NET Skills in Visual Studio?
In VS, I think at the moment it's going to be skills. So they have it at skill level. I'm hearing the plugins are coming soon.
Okay, so there might be a little delay still on the. If you're in full VS using GitHub Copilot there, you might have to wait a bit still yet. But they are working to align all those experiences so that you have a more consistent acquisition story.
Yes.
All right, cool. So that's good to know.
Plugins go from Copilot CLI dashboard, and it would just show up.
All right, cool. So I want to let's take a look at the aspnetcore ones. I'm gonna pull your screen off. Let me bring up mine real quick. So I'm also here at the .NET Skills repo. So if you're doing aspnetcore, Blazor development, and you want to know, okay, what plugins should I get? So I'll just point you to here. Like if you scroll down, you can see the full list of plugins. And the ones I really want to draw your attention to, well, of course, you should take a look at the core .NET plugin. I think that's the one that actually will bring in the C# LSP server. So that's a nicety there. And I know they're working on that one on like what core functionality should go into that plugin. But then the other two that I think are really interesting for aspnetcore developers are going to be these two. We have an aspnetcore plugin for things like minimal APIs and the like. And then, of course, a Blazor plugin for doing front-end web development. So you're going to want to install those. I believe I've already done that. So here I love the GitHub Copilot CLI. I just think it's brilliant. If you love Visual Studio Code or whatever, or some other agentic tool, that's totally fine. This has been something I've been working on though for almost exclusively now for a number of months. So I've got the GitHub Copilot CLI here. If I look at my plugin list, I'll just do /plugin/list there, and you can see I've got a number of plugins installed. I've got the Work IQ plugin, so that actually lets me do things with the GitHub Copilot CLI, which is normally a development tool, but allows it to see information from my work, like so things that I'm doing in my job. So that's super fun. Oh, sorry, to stay zoomed in there. And then I have the 3 plugins that I just mentioned. So .NET aspnetcore, .NET Blazor, all coming from our marketplace. This is the marketplace name that you'll see show up when you add the .NET/skills repo as a marketplace. It's .NET-agent-skills. Why isn't it called .NET Skills? Why isn't it called .NET Skills? Wendy and Abhitej, someone else grab that one first, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, there's another repo.
We have to get it back. Get it back. It's just a name. Don't worry about it. And for some reason, I have this old one. I think this is the first. Yeah, I actually have one of the plugins from the old marketplace. But anyway, those are the 3 that you're going to want. And the thing I want to first show you is because I have the core .NET plugin, I should have the C# LSP server. So to see that, I'm going to run the /LSP command. And you can see, yeah, right there, you can see the C# LSP server is now showing up. And it supports not just C#, but it also supports Razor and CSHTML files. And this basically is using Roslyn to now have a symbolic understanding of the code base, as opposed to just a textual understanding of the code base. Instead of doing grep and finding strings in the code, which, admittedly, the coding agents are really good at, using the LSP server, you can look at the actual symbols, use the Roslyn workspace to do things like refactorings and that type of stuff. So over here on the right, I have Visual Studio Code open with a Blazor web app that I created previously, and we're looking at the weather page. And so if I now ask, let's see what it does. I'm going to ask it to rename somewhere here on the weather page. Yeah, this guy. So I've got this weather forecast class that's been used on the weather page to set up the weather table. If you ever built a Blazor app, it has a page that shows you some weather data for a week. I want to rename that to something else. So let's rename weather forecast to my weather forecast. Okay, and let's see what that does by default. So here I'm not actually telling it to use the LSP. I'm just going to let it decide and see if it decides to use grep or if it actually uses the LSP server. So let's search, found 3 lines, read the file. So here it looks like it's just doing a textual search, I'm guessing. Yeah, yes, guys, and don't ask again. Yeah, I think in that case, it didn't actually use the LSP server. It just did its own thing. And this is something, it's important to recognize that when you're doing working with agents and skills and things, sometimes you have to tell it specifically, no, I want you to use this skill to make sure that it uses the functionality that you've set up. It does its best to make decisions, but sometimes for demo purposes, makes the wrong decision. So let me tell it to revert that change. I assume that worked. It looked like it did work. So let me revert the change. And this time, instead of just letting it decide, I'm going to tell it to use the LSP server. All right, cool. And then now I'm going to tell it to rename weather forecast to super weather forecast using LSP. And hopefully this will now show us that the LSP functionality kicks in. Yeah, there we go. So there we see the language server rename. So now it's using Roslyn and going in and understanding the symbol space. Okay, so that should be what you get. Like if you install the .NET plugin, you'll get this LSP server configured for you by default. When you're doing big refactorings or need to do something that might require a bit more more understanding of your code base than what doing grep might normally allow you to, you could try asking it specifically use the LSP server for this task. Okay, so that's the LSP server. Now we're going to look at some of the other plugins. Let's look at the aspnetcore plugin and also the Blazor plugin. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. You want to take it over from here? Let me stop sharing my screen. Let's get Mike's screen up, and I'll move you up so people can see your face.
All right. Thanks, Dan. So this is not so much a demo as kind of a walkthrough of the web API skill that is in the skills repo. And what I've got on my screen here is the prompt that I used, to create a web API. And this is in a repo that I've got out on GitHub. It's called Skills Demo in my my GitHub organization. And in there is 2 branches. So you can see down here, there's a no skill branch. And so I started by just taking that prompt without the skill installed and giving that prompt and getting, a result. And then I switched to a new branch and installed the skill and then gave it the same prompt, the exact same prompt. And what I got was really totally different. And let me just switch to the preview here. Actually, I guess I just pull this over. So basically, the API style was completely different. Without the skill, we got a web API using controllers. But controllers are really kind of the legacy style of web APIs, and the new strategic modern style is minimal APIs. And with the skill, it actually gave us a minimal API project. Without the skill, it exposed all of the raw data directly, all of the raw classes. Whereas with the skill, it actually created DTOs so that you expose only the data that you want through the API and don't reveal the underlying database structure. With the skill, we get data annotations and the new validation support that we have in .NET 10, so that you can get all of your APIs doing validation of their inputs, which is very important for security and proper operation. Many other features here that were directly contributed by using that skill. So you can see that this is kind of a mini form of what Abhitej was talking about, where you take a prompt and you run it without the skill, and then you run it with the skill, and you see the difference. And as you can see, there's lots of differences here. There's lots of things that we have to tell the LLM to do in order to get the right result. So I can quickly take you over to the skill. Close this guy up.
This is going to help people use our modern stack, minimal APIs instead of API controllers.
Yep.
Enable validation.
Yep.
You have separate DTO layer so that your API tier and your backend data objects are not clearly separated.
Exactly. So you can see that we basically have instructions here written in Markdown. We talk about what you should be doing here. You should be building minimal APIs. What the inputs are. And actually, you can use this skill with an existing project as well. So if you have a project that has controllers, it will use controllers, okay? But if you're building a new project, as we were here, then it will favor going to minimal APIs, right? So if the project neither exists, then default to minimal APIs. And when you use minimal APIs, then you use all those new modern features like typed results, right? Like open API, like validation and things like that. So that's all written out in here. You can see it's a nice long list. This is another thing that the LLM likes, is you give it examples, right? So you show in the skill the examples, and that helps the LLM understand what it needs to build. So I think that's probably all I needed to show here, Dan. I can pass it back to you.
All right, cool. Yeah, so that looks great. So that's one of the minimal API skill is in the aspnetcore plugin, correct? So you'll get that as part of
that's correct. Yep.
And then lastly, we want to talk about Blazor, like some Blazor skills. Javier, you have some Blazor skills to show us too?
Yeah, of course. So let's switch to my screen. So I have here a small Kanban board application that we asked the LLM the agent to build. And I want to show you the difference between writing this with the skills and without the skills. So for Blazor, we have a set of around 9 skills, I think. and they cover a bunch of aspects. I normally like to say that skills, I put them in like 3 categories. Skills that teach the agent how to do certain technical things. So here's how you author a component. Here is how you coordinate across components. Here's how you configure Roth. These are the things that you are seeing here. So for example, here's how do you collect user input. And then there are other skills that are about the workflow. If the agent does things correctly, then maybe you don't need the skills. But in many cases, what we see is that, for example, when you ask for the agent to do a UI change or something similar, the agent will happily spill out a massive application out of the box. And there are many times where you want to pause the agents, tell it, hey, hold your horses here. Let's talk a bit about the UI that we want to build first, or let's break down the UI. And this is what other skills help, like, for example, the plan UI help. And here's an example. The Kanban board that I just showed you, the agent essentially decided to say, 1 page, I don't need anything else. I can read these 600 lines of code, get everything right, no problemo, I can handle everything. It's like 20 private fields, no problem, I can fit all in my head. Then you can see like the markup is like absolutely clear. You can understand everything. I'm sure that like you are reading this without problems. And then by comparison, if we go to the application with the skill, you can see that the agent does a much better job at actually breaking down the skills into things that you can manage. And this is important because in the end, you might think that, oh, I'm just going to ask the LLM to build it. But ultimately, if you are a responsible software engineer, you're going to have to read and understand that code. So you want the LLM to actually generate code that you can understand. The cost of not doing so is that over time, your project is going to grow, and it's going to grow to a point, and it's going to get entangled. It's going to get enough entangled that you're not going to be able even to manage it with the LLM. We all know the metaphor of the big ball of mud or the spaghetti. You now have a thing that writes code 1,000 times faster, if not more. So you get to that point much faster if you're not careful.
I suspect that'll be helpful even for the agent too. Like when the agent wants to make a change to just like this top level board.razor file, and it's only like, 100 lines of code instead of 600, like that's less for even for the agent also to think through. Like those abstractions add value to humans and also the agents, I suspect, as well.
Exactly. When the agent goes and reads the board, it can read the entire board and has full context. It doesn't have to go and say, oh, I read the first 200 lines, and I now need to go and read the next 200 lines, and so on.
Yeah. So
there are a bunch of things that the skills that I show you essentially make the improve on the base experience. So one thing that you can see is that there are a list of components that are associated with the different things for the board. So you have the status bar, you have the search bar, and one telling sign is that if you go here, so if we go to the board, and I love to see this, it's like the agent goes and says like, I'm just gonna put a comment here, and this is how I separate code. This is the regions of the Razor world. So we'll go put another region here, and it's like, if there was only one thing that you could use to encapsulate a piece of UI and not have to worry about the details.
This is how Javier talks to his agent, by the way, like full shaming, like if there were, did you think maybe there was a better way, Copilot, to do that?
Yes,
I'm sorry. Like,
I do worse things to my agents, but you don't get to see them. But yeah, you get the point. You want to come to a page, and when you review it, you want to see the structure. You want to say, hey, here's my summary, here's my search, here's the list of my Kanban columns. So you can see other differences, like for example here, like we can see the key applied here. If we go to the original board, if I can find the Kanban column, which I will do the agent way. Maybe I need to do for each. Where is the Kanban column? Oh, these are all the columns. So yeah, all the columns are essentially like just one.
Yeah.
So there are more things that this does. Obviously, like a state explosion, like who is not able to handle 19 variables in their head? Like the moment you have 18, what is like one more? Other things that it does, for example, passing the data and the events, making sure that data flows down and events flow up. That is essentially the core of this coordinate skills component. Yeah, so in general, I'm not going to go through all the things that it does, but you can see the main difference is that like this, you can like pick and you can understand. You can go to each one of the individual components and it's reasonable. You are able to abstract the details and hide them and compose. And this is not very different to what you would write as a human. Other things that are interesting that like it has not done in this case, but it loves to do with Blazor is all the task-based shenanigans where it tries to do task run and things like that that don't have any meaning in Blazor because Blazor is essentially single-threaded. And you can just use task-based programming to do everything. The point is using the skill essentially gives you more of an app that you would author as if you were a human. And that is essentially what you want to be reviewing. So,
and follows our best practices and guidance. Like a lot of our like the Blazor guidance that if you read every line of documentation in our docs, it can get encapsulated into these skills. So it becomes sort of like a Blazor expert in that sense, and really knowing like when to apply at key and how to correctly think about the life cycle of components and all those more complicated features to use, like setting up auth can always be a tricky thing. You have literally a skill that's set up there to help you accomplish those tasks. Very nice.
Exactly. In a certain way, is and I stop sharing the screen. In a certain way, is essentially grabbing the knowledge that you have as an expert and putting it in a box so that everybody can reuse it. That is the end. It's about here is how I do this specific task. Here is the workflow that I follow as an expert, and here is how I figure out when things are not working the way I expect. Those are the three things that like close the loop. The one thing that I always tell people is you need to give your agent a way to close the loop. You need to give your agent a way to like observe that the page is rendering, that the thing that you are expecting to happen is happening. Because if not, it will eventually say, I made a code change, it builds, I'm done.
And that's one of the questions I saw somebody asked in the chat is how can skills help you save tokens? And in this example, the skills can help reduce tokens because you're not going to have to do the rework to get it to the way that you want it to look. It's going to get it right or closer to right the first time. And so you're not going to have to go through 3 or 4 iterations and 3 or 4 iterations worth of tokens in order to get it to a state where you feel comfortable with. In other cases, you're giving it, like if you're creating your own specific things to follow your tasks, you're giving it that strict guideline. Sometimes you're giving it tools. And so it doesn't have to go out and create all of these things. It can scope the work that it's doing in order to make it more concise in the way you want it the first time. And so again, reducing that rework that you a lot of times have to go through when you're dealing with the models.
Yep. Instead of it generating a whole bunch of tokens to do something, you can tell it like, by the way, there's a tool right here that literally does that for you. That's already built and tested. Just run that, and then it doesn't have to spend any tokens for that. To be clear,
exactly.
it's not always going to save you tokens. Like skills do definitely cost tokens to bring them into the context window, then bring in all that data so that it knows what to do. So there are many cases where it will cost you more, but with the benefit of having higher quality output. But there are some cases where it can save you tokens, so it was worth at least mentioning that can.
Yeah, and that's precisely it. Is what Wendy said. Is like, I want the thing to get the thing done right or almost right on the first go instead of on the fourth try after me telling it 4 times the things that it did wrong. Because one, it takes more tokens, and second, it takes more time. I have to pay attention like through the process, which is literally what I don't want, because being able to let it run and do other stuff allows me to go and say, hey, I am going to go and do this other thing in parallel.
Cool. We have some other questions. So someone else asked about using skills and LSP servers in different like agent modes. Like if you're in plan mode, can it pick up skills and tools and things? Like Wendy, you probably know the answer to that one. Does that restrict access to those things when you're in plan mode?
In most cases, it does not. I have been finding that some of the agent harnesses are still working through and building some of these. Visual Studio and skill use is a little bit behind right now. And so in some cases, it won't pick up those things. With LSP, as I said, Visual Studio and VS Code have specific tools that were built specific to use their built-in LSP. And so any LSP outside of those tools aren't going to get called by those harnesses because their tools were designed specifically to do that and use the built-in LSPs that they have. So the LSP server that we provide in the .NET skill is meant for the CLI usage, where you don't have a built-in LSP and built-in tools that make that code search easier.
Oh, did not know that. This is why it's good to have the .NET tooling people here to answer some of these questions. That's interesting. Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Someone mentioned that they were using the native AOT skills from the .NET skills repo and the MS Build ones and having success with them. These are somewhat more, niche. He says the esoteric, and it's kind of more specific scenarios. But yeah, they're for those cases where you don't do it very often. And you probably forget how to deal, mess around with MS Build. Javier is in MS Build like every single day, so he speaks MS Build like fluently. But maybe you only.
I am literally doing MS Build right now on the background, and I can tell you that the best thing about agents is that I don't have to do MS Build.
Yes, the agents.
I can just tell it, go and do this.
They can help you. They can help you in those scenarios. I'm glad that that's helping out. There were some people asking about Fleet. Thindel asks, can I tell Fleet subagents to use a specific prompt, the same prompt, or to use auto? I don't know, like Abhitej or Wendy, do you guys know the answer to this one?
So you do /fleet and then you give your prompt. And so then what that does, that special set of instructions that the agent harness provides it says, you have a fleet of subagents to use, break this into the appropriate subtasks and use the appropriate subagents to go along with that. And yes, you can put that in YOLO or auto mode as well as with Fleet. And so you can have Fleet create a bunch of subtasks and go all on its own.
Kick off a small army of subagents to accomplish a task for you. And each of those subagents can be a specific custom agent for the type of task that makes sense.
And you can also tell it on the prompt what to use, because you can tell it, hey, use a front-end agent for this, and use a powerful model for this, and use a cheap model for that. That's something that I do a lot for mining, for example. When I need to create a skill and I know that there are issues and information and things that I've done in the past, I start the session, I say, go and read through all of this, which I don't want to do by hand, and then collect the summary for me, and then I build the skill with that. And that way I'm essentially encapsulating all the knowledge that I've created through the years. And I don't need to have Opus 4.8 go and read a document and summarize it. That's something that you can do with Haiku or whatever, and it's going to be much faster and much cheaper. So
optimizing collection. Yeah, makes sense.
That is one of the advantages of Fleet, is you can use different models within each of the subagents as well. And so the Fleet orchestrator is usually one of the smaller models. It'll pick one of the more available smaller models to do the orchestration, and then it'll farm out to the model that you had assigned originally to do some of the more complex tasks. But it will also say, you know, I don't need to use that large, really expensive model to do this small task, and it will give those to the smaller models as well. So it is also more, can be a token saving usage in order for it to divide those tasks up and use the right models for the right job.
Cool. Okay. I know we're pretty much at time. I'm going to try and get through as many questions as I can. Someone asked about the security risk of using MCP servers. Mike, I think you already responded to this one in the chat, but just to say it out loud, I believe, you know, when you're using an MCP server, it's a piece of code that you're allowing your agent to call into. So make sure that's a trusted piece of code, whatever service it is or tool you installed.
Particularly if you're running it a local MCP server, then it's running on your machine, and then you're running a piece of code on your machine, and you know you really have to be careful.
Yep. So the ones that we set up in the .NET Skills repo, of course, are ones that we vetted and that we trust. Typically, the ones that are shipped by Microsoft. Also, our MCP server is increasing your token usage. You do have to advertise the MCP server tools and the additional resources that they provide into the context window. So there is some token usage that absolutely can increase there. But similar to what we talked about with skills, they might be doing something very efficiently that if the agent had to do itself, it might actually be more expensive. So can be depends on what you're actually doing.
Yeah, you have no idea what amount of data that MCP server is going to come back with, and all of that goes into your token count. Its response gets fed back to the LLM as more tokens. So you'll want to really, when you're looking at using MCP servers, you'll really want to scrutinize, do I need this? Do I trust this? What's it going to do? And make that decision. Some of the things, you know, like as Dan said, the Microsoft provided ones, they've spent a lot of time making sure that they are only providing back the information that's needed, and that these are the best ways to get this information for you. But you know, others you may not trust as much.
Someone asked if there's a set of MAUI skills, just like there are for Blazor skills, and the answer is yes. There's a .NET MAUI plugin that's in the .NET Skills repo, so definitely go and check that one out and give it a try. Slang25 mentioned that, yeah, they're having, you know, using the LSP is a bit hit and miss for them. Sometimes it ignores it and does something, you know, manual instead. Yep, that's kind of the nature of the game with agents. You can always explicitly ask it to use the tool, and that often helps. It often sort of prods it along to say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it that way.
I mean, I would also say that gets better over time.
Yeah, the agents will just continue to improve. I mean, all this stuff that we're talking about evolves. Like as you know, as the AI models themselves get better, the need for certain skills may change. The need for certain tools may change. You know, and part of the job of maintaining our marketplace is making sure we're up to date with those things. Someone asked about about specifically what does LSP server do? I think we talked to this a couple times, but just to clarify, the difference between using LSP and what the AI model will typically do. The AI model will typically like look at the source code and do analysis on that by using tools like grep and search and, you know, edit, just editing the files directly without the symbolic semantic understanding of the code. It's inferring that by what it's reading from the source code. Whereas the LSP server, like the C# one, is actually going to use our compiler, like use Roslyn to understand the symbolic space of the code, and then can do, you know, very precise things like precise renames, precise search to navigate through the code base. So that's what that's enabling.
Yeah. So under the covers, it is making an API call directly into Roslyn instead of doing a grep. And so yeah, you can go out and look at the Roslyn.
So it'll know the difference between a local variable and a global variable, for example.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it'll find source generated versions that a grep would not find. Yep.
A couple people actually mentioned Squad. So, and we've been talking about Fleet. So maybe wondering what's the difference between those two projects. So Squad is a separate open source project that I believe sets up a set of specific custom agents to help accomplish a task. So it's similar in flavor to Fleet. But I believe it's spinning up a specific pattern of sub-agents where there's like a manager and there's some tooling where the different sub-agents can kind of talk to each other and how they coordinate. So that's a separate project. It's different. It's independent of the CLI, but it can be a very effective way to accomplish larger longer running tasks by spinning up a squad of sub agents that have been configured in a very specific way. That's about my level of understanding on it. If anyone else has a deeper context, feel free to chime in. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so Fleet is more transient, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that covered it. Fleet, I think, is dynamic set of tasks, but Squad, you have the structure tied to it, so you can potentially create as a team of developers, and then you just give any task to it.
So I think Squad was created before Fleet was a thing in the CLI, and so it was meant to kind of close this gap. Now I think there's ways of adding Squad into Fleet, but but you can basically do pretty much everything you can do with Squad with Fleet. You can provide those personas and everything that you had before as custom agents, and so they should work. But I know that the folks who were working on Squad were trying to figure out how to make them work together.
Cool. For folks interested in learning more about Squad, it is a really cool project. I'll add a link to that to our URL list for today, so you can find resources about that there. Okay. I think we're at time. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question. Hopefully we got to most of them. Wendy, Abhitej, Mike, Javier, thank you for joining us today. Super cool to see the frontier of AI development for .NET. Wendy, real quick, if people want to give feedback on the skills, the plugins that are in the .NET skills repo, where should they go? What should they do?
Please open an issue in the repo, in the .NET skills repo. We look at those daily. So yeah, please do.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful week. And with that, happy coding. Bye, folks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.